So good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone, and it's a great pleasure for me to be able to be here with you. I'm really delighted that this is taking place in Cambodia, which is a place that I hold very dear to my heart. Your Excellency, the Secretary of State, and Your Excellency, the Undersecretary of State, Your Excellency, the Governor of Siem Reap Province, and participants. I want to say, first of all, in welcoming you to this event, how wonderful it was to see everyone out on the field trip yesterday in their locale UNCDF t-shirts. So sort of seeing this whole group, that big of a group as a team behind this program, with all of the effort that each of the individual countries participating in the locale board, participating in this program, and all of the effort that's gone into it through David and his team and the teams on the ground, and to see how sizable this initiative is becoming is really is a great thing, because this is the moment when this kind of initiative can really take off with a few very committed and forward-thinking participating governments who are prepared to kind of carry the mantle for the rest of the countries to follow. And it's particularly great to know that Cambodia is one of those countries that is creating the model for the rest of the least developed countries, and possibly more, on how this kind of initiative of channeling finance to the local level for climate adaptation can really help change the way countries can go about meeting their commitments to their own populations and to the international community on climate change adaptation, and really contributing to people's lives in a very big way by undertaking this kind of climate adaptation where the decisions are closest to where people live. So let me congratulate Cambodia and congratulate all of you, all of the participating countries, for being part of this and for being willing to share lessons at this relatively early stage, so that we know as we go along that we're learning from all of you and we're able to together make this the most impactful and meaningful initiative that we can. So welcome all of you again. We know that the least developed countries are really some of the most vulnerable to climate change, because not only are they least able to recover from climate stresses when they hit, they also have lower capacities to adapt than other developing countries. And their economic growth is highly dependent also on climate-sensitive sectors like agriculture. Climate change threatens to undo years, decades of progress towards reducing poverty and improving human development. All climate change is local. It's where people live. It's where people interact with their local economies. So adaptation to climate change also is local, needs to be local. Central governments alone cannot respond to the challenge of climate change. Large-scale, nationally financed programs require local complementary actions in order to be really effective. How authorities and communities change agricultural practices, improve water resource management, strengthen land use planning, retrofit local infrastructure, we saw some of those yesterday, prepare for and reduce risks from disasters. All these activities need to be tailored to address the specific local challenges presented by climate change. But while local authorities are finding themselves on the front lines of climate change, there's often a gap between this very challenging and enormous mandate that they're being given, what's expected of them on the one hand, and what they actually have the capacities and the resources to do and to deliver to their populations on the other. So in many least developed countries, local governments lack the fiscal space to invest in climate proofing, existing infrastructure, or to undertake other forward-looking investments that can help build resilience at the local level. Local governments also have trouble absorbing the incremental cost of climate change adaptation through local taxes and other revenue streams. Most resources come earmarked from central government for recurring expenditures, leaving little for capital investment. Budgetary allocations for climate change-related expenditure are also typically concentrated in central government agencies, often in ministries of environment and agriculture, which of course at the national level have a tremendous job to do, but need to also have the local government connections to be able to really reach down to the local level. This is where locale comes in, to bridge the gap between what local authorities should do at their level and what they're able to do in order to adapt to climate change. And this is also where the UN Capital Development Fund has a particular mandate. We work on the new Sustainable Development Goal agenda and on the Financing for Development agenda primarily through SDG 17 on means of implementation, by working on bringing finance to the local level. So making finance work for the local level and making finance work for the poor. So through SDG 17 on means of implementation, and very much in keeping with the paragraph 34 from the Financing for Development Outcome document, which focuses on the role of local government in the financing for development under the new agenda. This program really aims at helping countries achieve progress against SDG 9 on resilient infrastructure, on SDG 11 on building sustainable and resilient cities and human settlements, and on SDG 13 on combating climate change. Locale is our approach, UNCDF facility for investment in local level climate resilience that we use to a facility that we're helping to create so that governments have access to a facility that channels global adaptation finance to local governments. The least developed countries are the owners of the facility. They sit on the board, and our job is to operate the secretariat of that board. The Green Climate Fund is aiming for a floor of 50% of its adaptation allocation for particularly vulnerable countries, including least developed countries, small island developing states, and African states. The locale facility is geared to help local governments ultimately access this funding directly. It provides a mechanism to enable the mainstreaming of climate change adaptation into local governments' planning and budgeting systems, to increase awareness and response to climate change at the local level, and increase the amount of finance available to local governments for climate change adaptation. And the method for doing so is innovative. The locale facility connects to existing national intergovernmental fiscal transfer systems and supplements capital grants to local governments with performance-based climate adaptation funding. Communities and their local governments jointly identify the most pressing climate adaptation needs to which the supplementary transfers can be applied. The transfers can also be used for investments that promote food security, such as water catchment systems that help farmers manage droughts, or investments for climate-related disaster risk reduction and preparedness. This way, locale provides a fast and effective means to channel adaptation finance to where it's most needed, while at the same time ensuring local ownership, accountability, and results. The methodology is derived from UNCDF's specific experience in setting up such fiscal transfer systems for effective capital investments and capacity building of subnational governments. That's the result of decades of work that UNCDF has engaged in around the world. There is another innovative element in locale's approach, and that relates to its partnerships with the global climate change community. Locale will be working with the Korean Environment Institute, and we have colleagues here this week with us from the Korean Environment Institute. It will use satellite data and forecasting models to support participating local governments to make sure that their planned initiatives on climate change adaptation respond to expected climate change impacts. Locale is also partnering with the World Resources Institute. It will help local government to ensure that the climate adaptation activities that they are implementing are indeed increasing resilience in their communities. These partnerships are themselves testament to the progress Locale has been making in only 4 years. In 2011, the Locale mechanism was introduced and piloted in Bhutan and Cambodia with the support of their governments. Locale has since moved quickly to expand with generous support from the EU, Belgium, CETA, EU, said that already, and Liechtenstein. Locale program unfolds in 3 phases. The first phase, which involves piloting, initial scoping, is followed by testing in 2 to 4 local governments. The second phase, which is the consolidation and learning phase, takes place in 5 to 10% of local governments in the same country. This involves collecting lessons and demonstrating the effectiveness of the approach at a larger scale. And then the third phase, which is the scaling up phase, is a full national rollout of Locale based on the results and lessons of the previous 2 phases. Bhutan is about to enter this third phase of scaling up to the national level. Currently, Locale provides grants to 38 local governments, servicing among them millions of people across 10 least developed countries. Those are Bangladesh, Benin, Bhutan, Cambodia, Ghana, Laos, PDR, Mali, Mozambique, Nepal, and Niger. The overall aim is to scale up Locale's support to the national level across all of these countries, and more countries are expected to join Locale in 2016. We have with us 4 candidates that is soon to be participating countries: Lesotho, Tanzania, Tuvalu, and Uganda. They are interested in hearing about your experiences so far in establishing the Locale mechanism to help guide them in their participation. The collaboration among different initiatives on climate change is essential to the success of this initiative. In this case, the collaboration between Locale and the UNDP UNEP, that's the UN Environment Program, Poverty Environment Initiative, has demonstrated strong synergies in supporting participating countries. As Locale expands, it is also important to collect and document lessons learned and good practices and to spread the best ideas around. It's likewise important to build a common understanding of the approach and to share experiences with existing and new participating countries, development partners, and the international community at large. I'm delighted that current and prospective Locale participating countries are here today to discuss how Locale has been supporting climate change adaptation and to exchange ideas for moving forward. This way, we can continue to ensure that the initiative is as useful as possible in helping subnational authorities tackle climate change. I also hope that this workshop will allow the local governments and Locale participating countries to establish better peer-to-peer support networks. So by all means, get to know one another, and let's hope that one of the outcomes of this event can be the establishment of a lesson learning network and exchange that can really help to increase the overall capacity, the bargaining power, which will be important as we move forward with the SDG agenda and new forms of finance flowing in for climate change, to access climate financing and to increase resilience at the local level. With your support, we can get Locale recognized as the go-to country-based mechanism as a standard that can support local governments in getting direct access to international climate finance through their central governments. That way we can empower local authorities to strengthen their adaptation and resilience and build sustainable economies. I wish you all a very productive workshop and much success in adapting to climate change and building resilience at the local level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Judith, for that very comprehensive introduction and for your warm words. And I would like to thank you and the whole of UNCDF management for the way that you have